see if YouTube's going. Let's mute this.
Is that the Eurovision singer there? It is too. Great win, mate, last year. Great win.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, great.
Centre, isn't
I think if you want to see more people, I think you can hit somewhere up the top right. There's
Unmute, yeah.
yeah, no, that gallery view.
Yeah, you can change the view that you're on. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll show you a whole heap of people.
Yeah, if you
Look at Sam's bird. Sophia, see Sam's bird next to you? Oh.
You know what sort of bird? Do you know what sort of bird that is?
Yeah, what sort of bird is it?
Now it hasn't. I'm just watching on another computer to see if this live stream started. It hasn't started yet, but there was a delay last time, so.
yeah, because it says in my screen that it's live on YouTube.
It does. So I'm presuming that it'll just appear any second. But they're going to hear all this crap. Welcome, YouTube people. Because there's a it says there's 11 waiting on YouTube. I'm not sure why it hasn't gone yet. Definitely says it's going, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just says waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's 7:30 it starts.
Do you reckon that's why?
Yeah, because it says
Maybe
10th
it
of
won't
June,
actually.
7:30. Yeah, so a minute away.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it doesn't actually start it till then. We'll see. See if it comes up then. Yeah, because there was a delay, but not this much.
That bird's going to peck you in the head in a minute, Sam. I can just see it happening.
Do I need to? I can't see myself at the moment. I'll have to need to wipe him out or something, do I?
Hey, Ben, look up. Ben, look up. I'll look down. Look at the Brady Bunch. Look down.
it?
Righty. No, that's illegal, isn't it, to catch wild birds?
Yeah.
I'm
Lucky you
presuming
got
it's
the one
wild.
out of the industry.
Well, it says 7:30 on my computer, but it still doesn't come up on the.
Yeah, it's working now.
Oh, YouTube is.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just started just now.
oh, it hasn't started it on mine. What have I done? I'll just refresh this screen here then.
Yeah, there's comments.
Oh,
on it.
you're right. Oh, there's me and my red cat Robin, and there's you. Cool. Now what? I better mute that, or I'll be the one who's causing problems here. Oh, you're right. Oh, there's me and my red cat. Cool. So it looks like there's 8 watching there. Oh.
Should we wait a few more minutes?
That Ben.
That's Ben that's making all the racket. What are you doing?
Making racket. I'm
Yeah,
making
you're not muted, so we can hear whatever it is you're doing.
no racket on my end.
No, you keep coming up on the screen. That's all, because you're the noisiest person on here.
I'm the person that probably talks the most. Almost.
11 people.
Hmm? I mean,
That's weird. Hamo, I'm not sure who Hamo is, but he's saying on YouTube that he's still seeing the presentation by David Pace. I don't know why that is, because I'm not seeing it. It all looks fine to me. And it definitely had Bob Wright's name there before.
Mm.
You want to take your press that button. Daddy,
Yeah.
when you want to do it, Julie, just press that.
Yeah.
it's just as thought.
I can see everything. I've got a Commodore 64. Mine's working well.
Can I just say to everybody first who's on Zoom, because a whole lot of new people, other people have just entered. I've got it so that you're muted immediately as you come in. So if you need to say something, you can just hold, well, you can unmute yourself, or you can just hold down the space bar while you speak and then release. And when you release the space bar, you'll be muted again automatically. That might be the simplest way if you need to speak.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a few more people joining as we speak, so maybe we'll just wait another couple of minutes before Maddie starts, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, I was a bit worried because I wouldn't get in because it was after 7:30, so there might be a few people that are fiddling with their computer, wondering why it didn't work.
I think that was kind of me as well, because when the screen shared, the seeing the waiting room of the participants is sort of a separate window. I keep forgetting to admit people.
Hello, David Pace. How are you? I've got a message on my screen from David. So I gather he's on as well, is he?
Yes, I am. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but yes.
Yeah, we can hear both of you.
I can hear
Am
you.
I being heard now? I don't know what's going. This is my first time. I don't know what I'm doing.
You're doing brilliant, Tom.
We
We can hear you fine.
Good eye.
Maddie, there doesn't seem to be that many people appearing now. I'll keep watching anyway, so probably good to go whenever you're ready.
All right. Sam, did you want to just double check while I'm speaking the intro about the YouTube? Because I think there's something going on with it. I sent you a message.
I've got YouTube going on another computer next to me, but muted, and it looks fine to me.
Okay. All good. All good. So we'll start our June meeting, our second ever online Zoom meeting. So welcome everyone. It's good to see there's a fair few more people on Zoom tonight. And you would have heard Sam say before, if you want to speak and you're on a computer, press and hold the space bar and that will let you speak freely. And we'll just make sure that there's no like talking over top of each other, but it should be all good. And we've also got YouTube running tonight as well. Ben, did you want to give us a sales table update?
I can. We've had a few more orders come in this week. Orders will be packed this weekend and posted out again early next week. We've just made a new order for bird rings I think there was 8,000 that we ordered. We're still waiting to hear back on coarse charcoal. Other than that, everything else seems to have landed. Still haven't heard back on coconut fibre, but I believe that's in the process of being ordered and hopefully landed in Australia soon. Also, in the seed heads, we've been told we cannot get any more French white millet, and whatever we've got is what will last us until the end of the year. So if you want anything, let me know, because once it's gone, it's gone. Other than that, it's pretty much it from me.
Perfect, thank you. Brian, did you want to give your membership update? Hey, Brian, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
I'll start again with it. I'll spend it all there. I'll put the space bar down this time. So yeah, I was going to say, I just said that business is booming. We've got something like over 20 new members. I guess a lot of that's to do with COVID and the sales table and the fact that they just want to join this wonderful club. We have run out of print of the first issue for this year, 2020, and it will be reordered when issue 3 is printed. So a lot of the newer members would probably have only received issue 2 and may not have even received issue 2 yet. But when the issue 3 is printed, which will be in a couple of weeks, then we'll be able to post out those magazines that once we get a print run for them. Something like 284 financial members at the moment. That's it.
Perfect, thank you. It's very good to see we've got lots of new members, even though we're not having the in-person meetings. I think hopefully we should all have the meetings back on track eventually, but it's just time will tell at the moment. Now, Treasurer's report, Lynn isn't able to attend the meeting tonight. I'll explain a bit more in a moment. We haven't had anything come in or out for the banks in the last month, and the bank balance is, as of today, $24,142.14. So that's just all we've got for this month. Unfortunately, Lynn's partner, Marilyn, passed away last week, which is a big loss to our club. I think speak from most members that are at the meetings. We always see Marilyn's happy little face at the meetings, and she's always been a great help to our club, particularly in the last few years. She's worked on the door at our bird sales, which has been a massive help. It's a job nobody really wants to do, sitting there all day, and she's there from early morning, and she's helped us out massively. So it's a big loss to our club. Did anyone else want to share some words about Marilyn?
Yeah, I might quickly. I went to the funeral, and luckily there was, because at the time with the COVID-19 thing, you only have 25, and I think it ended up there were sort of 24 who wanted to come in the door, so it was lucky. And then we went back to Marilyn and Lynn's place. I learned a lot about the two of them, actually, that I wasn't aware of. They've actually been together for 36 years. So in terms of a same-sex couple, they were actually real trailblazers back in the 1980s, late 80s and 90s. And I wasn't really aware of that. So yeah, there was a bit that they've accomplished and achieved, which was amazing to hear, really. And obviously, you know, lifelong partners. So very, very sad for Lynn, but you know, she's doing okay under the circumstances. And actually, Justin was there. Justin Georgopoulos, who owns a cafe at Campbelltown, for those who don't know, he and one of our members who's here. You might like to say something, Justin, too, because it was, I mean, it was a great evening hanging around there having a yak, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of friendly people and a lot of good laughs, and yeah, should be sorely missed. But no, Lynn's in good spirits, and I think there's just with those two, there's a lot of laughter, and lot of fun and games. So yeah, that's how we'll remember her, I think. So that's how I'll remember her. Yeah. So God bless her.
Thank you. I was just going to do a minute silence. It's something that we do for members that don't come to our meetings. We just have a minute silence for those that have passed away just to honour them. So we'll just have a minute silence. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Sam, did you want to provide a government and representative update, please?
Yeah, there's probably not a huge amount of progress in the last month. Brian and I and also the president of Animal Care Australia met with Atticus Fleming, who's now, you might have heard of him from the Australian AWC, but he's now the head of National Parks and Wildlife Service in New South Wales, to try to get our native animal licensing thing going. We're still, sort of a bit of to and fro with him, I suppose, to try to see where we head with that, and trying a few different tactics to get that moving. In terms of the ACT matter, I'm sort of hoping to resolve the New South Wales one first. And Gary Fitt, who I believe's in this meeting as well. Same thing with Queensland. They're still sort of, theirs is going to happen. It's just a matter of waiting for it actually to be finalised.
We're still waiting.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, not much progress. The thing where Animal Care Australia is really progressing, there are animal welfare legislation reviews in both New South Wales and Victoria that are starting up. Western Australia is also underway. I'm not too sure about the other states. They're the three I'm aware of and am involved in. In New South Wales and in Victoria, ACA is recognised as a major stakeholder now. So we'll be at the table. We already have had meetings with the people in charge in both those states. I've had a number of meetings in New South Wales, and we've only just started in Victoria. So we're sort of up there representing all, in terms of Animal Care Australia, all animal groups, beside RSPCA Victoria, and beside RSPCA New South Wales and Animal Welfare League in New South Wales. So that's terrific news, really, with that major review of all the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Acts in those states.
All right, thank you. Did anyone else want to provide any government or representative updates? I mean, Gary, if you had any updates, you're welcome to add in anything, or Ben.
No, we're still waiting in Queensland. The story is exactly the same as a month ago. Everything's approved, but it's just sitting somewhere.
I might just add in terms of the coronavirus business, for those clubs, there's something like 250 clubs that are affiliated with Canary and Cage Bird Federation of Australia. So for those who don't know, I'm president of that organisation. We sort of recommended, because of what the federal government was doing and all the states at the time, that no events go ahead until after, well, it turns out they can't anyway, until after the 14th of June. We're going to reassess that at our July 1st meeting. So if you are, and I know that there are some states, Western Australia has already gone to phase 3, which means that they can have, I think, up to 100 people at events that are in a single venue, assuming that the social distancing, I think they've actually reduced theirs to 2 square metres rather than 4 square metres, assuming that works. And they can have 300 people, I believe, if it's a multi-venue, like an ag show, perhaps it's got a number of different pavilions. They can have up to 300 people. So we're hoping, I guess, that will happen in the eastern states over the next few months. So you might like to, if you're a member of other clubs that run sales and other events, you know, keep that in mind. See, because on the 1st of July, we're going to kind of try and have a bit of a discussion at Federation to work out, well, how can you actually do that? How would that work in practice if people start opening their events up again? Anyway, something to think about.
Yeah, it'll definitely be an interesting time. I think that the Zoom for the moment is working for us, and we'll just keep going with that until we know that everything's all good and in the clear to do our meetings again. Did anyone else on the Zoom have anything else that they would like to share before we do our guest speaker for the night? Nope. Okay.
Hang on, sorry. I keep forgetting to press the bloody space bar.
That's okay.
Given that sales aren't happening, and I guess people maybe aren't aware, but most of us probably are, pet shops are doing a roaring trade. So if you've got birds you need to move, get onto the pet shops, because the few that I've had contact with are desperately looking for finches. So if you've got some there, just give your local pet shop a bit of a call.
Yes. Okay. Now, tonight we've got Bob Wright doing a presentation on the undefinitive way to breed maggots. I've heard it's a very good presentation, and feel free, everyone. I think Bob will give an introduction, but if anyone at the end has anything that they would like to add in as well, maybe a bit of a discussion of how they do things, or if you've got questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or even if you think of something but don't want to interrupt, pop it in the chat and we can just keep an eye on it. And the same in YouTube. We'll do the same as we did last meeting. We'll monitor it, and then Sam and myself will ask the questions from YouTube at the end of the meeting. All right, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Maddie. Let me see if I can share. Would you be able to stop sharing your screen, Maddie?
Yes, I just realized I forgot to stop share. There we go.
Ah, fantastic.
Bob, I can see you there.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Fantastic. Okay, maggots, the undefinitive guide to maggots. Speaking to Sam at a recent meeting, and he'd been round to a number of aviaries for the Red Siskin program. It's in a number of aviaries, and went to Taronga Zoo, various places like that as well. And he said that everyone has a slightly different way of breeding their maggots, without exception. So this guide is the undefinitive guide to breeding maggots, because everyone does it slightly differently. Now, I have a disclaimer. When I was first asked to do this presentation, I thought that I was teaching my grandmother to suck eggs. Now, I know there'll be a few younger people in the audience tonight. That means that you have an amateur trying to give advice to an expert when you're trying to teach your grandmother to suck eggs. And, oh, somebody else has started. Oh, hang on, what happened there?
Brian, I think
Brian.
you've accidentally.
Brian, what did you do there, Brian?
Oh no.
Amazing what you can do with a keyboard.
Okay, so I purchased my fly box at the Singleton sale in 2011. I just started getting into Gordian finches in 2011. I was given 2 pair of Gordian finches by my partner Tanya, and I saw this fly box at Singleton sale, which I promptly bought. However, I did not start breeding maggots until January 2020, Australia Day this year. So I'm an expert in storing fly boxes, but not an expert in breeding maggots. So there we go. So why should we breed maggots? Well, because live food is essential for some species, mainly the soft bills. Without live food, some birds won't even survive. A lot of those soft bills won't breed. Also, live food is a supplemental food for many other species of finches. Even finches that you think that won't need live food, such as Gordian finches, they will eat maggots when breeding. Maggots are also easier to breed than the alternatives. Termites are very hard to find these days. You're not allowed to take them out of national parks. And I guess it's a no-no to have termites breeding in your house. I have a lot of experience at breeding mealworms. And although mealworms are fairly easy, it's slow. And I've had a number of problems with mealworms, mainly brand mite. People that breed mealworms will know what brand mite is. It creeps up on you, and then you've got a billion of these little mites running around. Also, compared to mealworms, maggots have a lower fat content. So therefore, they are healthier. They also have a better calcium to phosphorus ratio. Now, not many people know about this, but if you have too much phosphorus, it slows down or stops the absorption of calcium. So you need to have calcium to phosphorus ratio roughly 2 to 1. Most food, including maggots, won't have that ratio. They'll have more phosphorus than calcium. So it's important to feed calcium from extra sources, shell grit and things like that. I also found with mealworms, it's easier to purchase them and refrigerate them. Mealworms last a lot longer in the fridge. So that's why we should essentially breed maggots. Now there's a whole host of reasons why we should not breed maggots. And number one is psychological. Now my partner Tanya, I'm extremely fortunate. Well, I'm extremely fortunate to have a partner, but I'm extremely fortunate that my partner Tanya also breeds birds. She's mainly into canaries, but she absolutely loads the maggots. I was away on the weekend, and my daughter normally comes up and feeds the birds. Now that I'm breeding maggots, she was very upset that she had to face the maggots. Although she did feed the birds, it was all under protest. Maggots also have a short lifespan compared to mealworms, so you need to keep that under consideration. Compared to mealworms especially, maggots are great at escaping. Any chance they get, they will escape. They will even squeeze through fly screen wire. And I'll show you an example of the fly screen wire. It's a very fine fly screen wire the maggots will squeeze through. If there's any moisture in your container, maggots will crawl up the container and out. I had a really interesting example where the birds were using water, were in a water container, and they were splashing the water, and the splashing was hitting the maggot tin that was feeding out, and the maggots were crawling out and then they crawled up into the bowl that I was feeding greens with. So when I took the old greens inside to put them in the compost bin, they were sitting on the kitchen bench. Later on that night, Tanya sent me a message saying there were maggots all over the kitchen bench, which she cleaned up. And then I got another message about half an hour later saying there were more maggots on the kitchen bench because she hadn't realised that the maggots were coming from the compost bin that we have in our kitchen for scraps. So got to be really careful about the escapees. Maggots are not easy to pick up. I don't know what it is, but if you knock over a punnet of maggots or you drop a punnet of maggots, to try and sweep them up is nearly impossible. So just be aware of that. I know it's stating the bleeding obvious, but where there's maggots, there's flies. And flies are a problem. especially when you're trying to put your containers in and out of the fly box. You always get flies escaping. So you need to be aware of that. And then this also comes back to the psychological part, because I had the maggots breeding for about a month. And Tanya, my lovely partner, said to me one day, "Have you noticed that there's more flies hanging around the house?" So I'm not too sure about that. There is a smell associated with maggots. Every aviary or every place that I've been to that are breeding maggots, you can smell it. Some smell worse than others. Some places smell worse than others, but there is a smell. I think as maggot breeders, we become used to the smell, but a lot of people will notice that smell. Maggots are also slightly more time consuming. To feed my birds takes about 30 to 40 minutes. I've got 7 aviaries, 7 completely separate aviaries. So to prepare the food in the morning, that's to chop the greens up, corn, Lebanese cucumber, sprouted food, and to feed that out takes me about 30 to 40 minutes at a fairly leisurely pace. The maggots roughly take me about 20 to 30 minutes. I feed my maggots out separately, and by the time I do the mixtures, etc., I'm looking at roughly 20 to 30 minutes to do my maggots. And the other thing about maggots is that it's continuous. It's like a production line, and it's very hard to slow down that production line. I noticed on the weekend I was away for 2 days, no problems with that. But I think if you're away for a week or something, then I'm not too sure how to stop and start the maggot production. And maybe somebody can talk about that when we have time for question and answers. So here's the life cycle of the maggots, of the flies. So we have the flies, and they lay eggs in some sort of medium. Now, flies will lay about 300, 400 eggs, and the eggs will take about 12 hours. And after 12 hours, they will turn into larvae, starting off very, very small, you know, about 1/10 of a millimetre long, and then they'll end up to be 2, 3, maybe 4 millimetres. In that time, they're 5 days in the larvae stage. In that time, they will shed their skins about 3 times, I believe. And then they turn into a pupae, and they'll be in the pupae stage for 5 days. And then after that, they will turn into a fly. Now, these times and all that are just averages. Believe it or not, there are about 30,000 species of flies in Australia, according to the CSIRO. But they turn flies of all sorts of flies, but of the type that we mainly look at, I think there's about 2,000 to 3,000 species of flies. So across those species, it's going to be some changes to the times that I've said there. So those times are just on average. So how do we do it? Well, most people will have a fly box, and that fly box will be at 28 to 32 degrees. Some people will have it hotter. I found that flies are very sensitive to the temperature, or especially low temperature. So it's pretty much compulsory to have a heated fly box of some sort. Most people will add a container of feed for 2 days to their fly box. And then after 2 days, some people will leave their containers in, and other people will take that container out, and then they will take that container that they've removed and tip it into a larger container and add more feed. And then everybody normally feeds their maggots out after 4 to 5 days. Now, maggots can be kept in the fridge to slow down their pupation. So this is my fly box setup. I found that my fly box that I purchased in 2011 tends to be a lot larger than other people's fly box. There's no, I don't think there's any advantage in having a large fly box. And the only problem with a large fly box is that you'd burn more electricity. So you'll see on the left there are 3 lights. The light at the top always stays on. If it goes dark, the flies will stop flying and they'll stop breeding. And the 2 lights lower down are controlled by the thermostat on the right-hand side. You'll see that that thermostat is set to a temperature of 30 degrees. And that means that when the temperature hits 30 degrees, the lights will turn off. And when it gets down to 29 degrees or lower, those lights will turn on. The only food that is provided to the flies themselves is sugar. And my sugar, you can't quite see it, but my sugar is at the back. I also provide a water container. I got my water container from Naturally for Birds. They sell a large water container like that, and they also sell a cotton roll that fits in the water container. So if you have a water container, you'll need to make sure that the water is not like freely available, otherwise the flies will drown. So most people will have cotton or something like that in it. If you look on the left-hand side, that's the container with the maggots in it. So that's what I call the feed container, and the flies will go there and lay their eggs. The containers on the right-hand side are the containers that will hold my new flies. They hold the pupae where the new flies will hatch from. Flies will live roughly 20, 30 days, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, depending on the species of flies that you have. So it's important that you keep new flies coming into your setup. So what's the feed that we feed our maggots? Well, it can be broken down to 3 components. There's bran, which is wheat bran, and some people use flaky bran, some people use mill run, and some people use pollard as their bran. There's milk powder. I think a lot of people use the calf raising powder, and other people will just use full cream milk powder. Now, optionally, some people will add an extra protein source. This can be chick starter crumble, or there's other components as well that I've read about they can use as extra protein source, but not everybody uses that. So the feed for maggots, this is the various ones that I've seen, and everyone's got their own sort of way of their own sort of mixture. John Walsh, who's a member of the Manly Warringah Agricultural Society, he uses 10 parts bran to 1 part milk powder. That's quite rare. John Butler, who had a large part in making this method available to people, he uses 4 parts bran to 1 part milk powder. Gary Fitt uses 3 parts bran, 1 part milk powder, and 1 part chick starter. And Mike Fiddler uses 1 part bran to 1 part chick starter. And he uses no milk powder. Now, I'm not too sure which is the best method or whatever. I can only talk about the method I use. Okay. The advantage that Mike talks about on not using milk powder is that the smell is a lot less. Now, it's not to say that there's no smell, it's just that the smell is a lot less. So what have I chosen to do? Now, I must stress this is a way, not the way. So this is my way of doing things, and it's not the way. So the method that I finally settled on was I used 1 part flaky bran to 1 part chick starter crumble. And that works extremely well. But I'll talk about that a little bit later, because sometimes you have to use milk powder. Okay, and I'll talk about what happened and why that happens. So I take the 1 part flaky bran, the 1 part chick starter crumble. I get to a very moist consistency. If you go onto YouTube and look at Sam's video on his fly setup, you'll see that the consistency of water that you need, essentially the water's not running out, but if you actually pick the mixture up and squeezed it, water would come out of it. Now I add this to a 1 litre Chinese takeaway container, and it's just about half full. I leave it in the fly box for 2 days. I turn the mixture after 1 day. Well, not always, but sometimes I'll turn the mixture after 1 day. If I feel that the mixture is dry, I will add extra moisture. In other words, I'll add some water. And I normally use a spray to add that water rather than pouring water in there. I'm not too sure why that is, mainly because I've got a spray bottle next to the fly box, I think. So after 2 days, I remove the container. So hopefully everyone can see that photo. So after 2 days, that's sort of the size and number of maggots that I have. Normally, you'll see that on the top, even though there's a lot of maggots, underneath there's actually a lot more maggots. So after 2 days, I remove the container, and then I put it into a larger container, and then I'll add extra food. So on the left is the container turned over, and I'm not too sure how clear this is coming through, but if you look closely at the photo on the left, you'll see that there are thousands and thousands of small maggots in there. And then I just add new feed on top of that. On the photo, it only goes like halfway across, but that's just to show you that there's new feed going on. I would cover my new container with new feed. It ends up being about the same amount of feed that I had for the original container. That goes in. So I then leave that container on top of my fly box. I meant to point out in the previous photo that the container was on top of my fly box, and because it's quite warm up there. So I leave that there for 2 more days. Now, I've got also to mention that my fly box is actually in my aviary. It's not in the bird room, it's actually in my aviary. Now, my aviary is actually 6 meters by 6 meters. I have a very large aviary. So the fly box is actually in the aviary, which is actually helpful on 2 or 3 points. So you'll see on the left is the maggots after about 2 days, and then on the right, I actually take a spoonful and I spoon those maggots into a cake tin. That cake tin is 200 millimeters, 20 centimeters wide, and then I feed that out. So you'll see that I'm feeding out the brand and the chick starter crumble, whatever's left. I'm feeding that out. Now, the consistency of that is very dry. So at the start, it's very wet, very moist, and when you come to feed it out, it's actually quite dry. I don't believe you should be feeding out if it's moist still, because it could be a little bit harmful. But this is what other people do, and they've had no problem. I know that some people try and sieve their maggots or try and clean their maggots up. I haven't done that, and I don't believe that other people do that. Other experienced breeders do that, and nobody seems to have any problems. I then take the leftovers out of the aviary, the uneaten maggots that I fed out to the birds, and I return those to a container, and that's the container you see in the photo. And I just put all the unused maggots in there, and then I've got 2 containers in the fly box, and I replace 1 container roughly every 4 days. So essentially what's in the container is fly pupae. They will hatch, and that provides me with my new lot of flies. Okay, some of the issues that I have faced. I received my punnet of maggots from John Malt, member of the Manly Warringah Agricultural Society. I cleaned out my fly box, set it all up, put the maggots in, and I think it was within about 2 or 3 days, I had flies flying around. But after a day, there were a lot of dead flies in my fly box. I couldn't quite work out what was going on, because I thought flies lived a lot longer than 1 day. And when I looked closely, all the flies were at the very front of the fly box, and there was a slight powder there. Now, where I had stored my fly box, I remembered there'd been an ant infestation in the bird room, and I used the ant killer powder from Woolies. We can buy it from Aldi as well, which is a permethrin powder, which is the same as Coupex, except it comes in powder form, which you just spray out. So when I'd cleaned out the fly box to set it up, I'd just taken the cloth, put my hand through the entry and sort of just wiped the inside. But obviously I'd left a residue of powder right at the very front of the fly box, and I believe that killed a lot of flies. So I went through and just cleaned that out again, and the flies were okay. So it just shows you how careful you have to be using poisons, because even a very small amount of poison, and even though it would have been quite old at that stage, I'm talking about months later, the consequences of that are quite far-reaching. Initially, I had a lot of flies escaping. So you have to be sort of psychologically awake to that, because I remember, like, once the maggots started breeding and I was taking the maggots out, I was having all these flies where I'd no flies in my aviary. All of a sudden there's flies everywhere. Now, initially, the birds weren't overly fussed about the maggots. It actually took a little while for the birds to cotton on that these maggots are really nice. They were used to mealworms, so I stopped feeding the mealworms, and it took them, roughly about 2 weeks for them to really start on the maggots. I don't have any fly eaters per se in my large aviary, so I was thinking, geez, these flies are escaping. They were in the large aviary. And the other thing that you need to be aware of, flies and fly boxes don't fly that well. Okay, if they've been bred in a fly box, they're not great flyers. Mainly because many generations of breeding, they haven't had to fly very far. I do notice now that when flies escape, I'll get my tricolored parafinches will fly around, trying to catch the flies. I've got ruddies as well. They'll fly around. Okay. Initially, I was doing this every day. So I would have 2 feed containers in my fly box. One would be today's feed container. The other one would be yesterday's feed container. And I was getting thousands and thousands of maggots. And even though I've got 8 aviaries of birds, they just weren't eating the maggots. So I then eventually worked out that I could do this every second day. So rather than doing it every day, I do it every second day. So everything's going along quite hunky-dory, and then one day production stopped. It was about mid-March, mid to late March, production stopped. And you know when production has stopped, because the food container, when you take it out, there's not that many maggots in there. And then after 2 more days, it doesn't smell very nice at all. It kind of starts to go off, in fact. And there's just not that many maggots, and you're trying to feed these things out, and it is a bit of a nightmare, especially once your birds have become slightly dependent on maggots. And March this year tend to be a peak breeding time for me. My breeding season was a lot later this year than normal. So all of a sudden I've got all these maggots going. At one stage I've got too many maggots, and now I didn't have enough maggots. I couldn't work out what was going wrong. What was the problem here? And I'm looking at my fly box, having my mixture, and I just couldn't work out. And then after a week, or about 5 days, 6 days of hardly having any maggots at all, and this terrible smell where the food was going off, I thought I'll up the temperature on my thermostat. So I increased it by 2 degrees, and then almost immediately the number of maggots increased. So a combination of things may have happened. Towards the end of March, it got a lot colder. So the general temperature got a lot colder. So that could have reduced the temperature in the fly box. Or secondly, the thermostat, which by this time is slightly covered in fly poop, might not be measuring the temperature correctly. But as soon as I upped the temperature, everything came back to normal. And I thought, you beauty. So then up to about 2 weeks ago, everything was flying along, maggots coming out my ears, and then production stopped again. And I thought, oh, what's going on here? So I upped the temperature again. I upped the temperature to 32 degrees and nothing happened. Now, there was a combination of things going on. My flies were at a bit of a low point, and I'm trying to muck around with trying to work out why I'm not getting enough maggots. I was getting some maggots, but not enough maggots to eat the food. So I'm mucking around with all sorts of things, and I was at a wit's end. So after about 4 or 5 days, again, very few maggots, food going off, I decided, now at this stage, I'm just using the 50-50 mixture of mite fiddlers. So 1 part bran and 1 part chick starter crumble. So I thought I'm going to add some milk powder. So I added one cup of milk powder to the mixture, and voila, my maggots started breeding again. So every time my production gets a bit low, or I feel that there's a fall off in maggots, then I'll add some milk powder to the mixture. There's no need to add it all the time. It's just when the production sort of falls away. And it tends to fall away, it sounds a bit funny, but the more flies you've got, the more maggots you get, okay? And there's some point, there's some critical point, if the number of flies you have starts to get a bit low, then there's a dramatic drop off in maggots. So you just need to be aware of that. And I've also heard that some people have tried to switch from the milk powder to the 50-50 method and have failed. If you're going to do that, or if you want to try it, make sure you've got lots and lots of flies in your fly box. My fly box is absolutely covered in flies. Like the noise it makes when you lift the towel off the front is quite loud. So you need lots and lots of flies. Okay, so resources that you need to look up, or if you're interested in maggots or you want to do a refresher on maggots, is the National for Birds website. I've looked at the videos on there umpteen times to go over. And I also think it helps, even if you looked at them, you should go back and have another look, because there'll be something you've missed or something you've changed, and you go back and go, oh, yeah, they're doing that. YouTube, Sam's got his fly set up there on YouTube. The Aussie Finch Forum, great little forum. There's been lots of talk there on maggots. I also like to plug the Aussie Finch Forum. I know a lot of us use Facebook these days, but the big problem with Facebook is that you can't go back and find anything. Most of us will be members of multiple Facebook groups. you'll read something and then you go, oh, geez. Now, I read this thing, what was it? And Facebook won't search, their search facility won't search the whole of Facebook for something that you've looked at. You've virtually got to know when and where, what group you saw it under and when it was in order to find it. Whereas the Aussie Finch Forum, you can search for anything you like. So if people have got great ideas, then maybe join the Aussie Finch Forum and join on there, because then people will be able to find them. The other great resource I had was the Hawkesbury Finch Club, Clifton Avery's. They had some information on maggots there. That was quite good as well. So there was lots of resources out there. But if you use the ones that I've highlighted, then you'll actually go a long way. So that's it, folks. That's the undefinitive way of breeding maggots.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bob. I think everyone would attest that that was a very informative presentation on all the little tips and things that you've found throughout your time breeding them. I think anyone can say, I know that we've lost ours so many times. We've had trips up to local breeders' places to get a new little batch to redo it. Did anyone have any questions or input or ways that they do different things that they wanted to contribute?
Actually, I think Bob's covered it pretty thoroughly, actually, and he even looked at what other people are doing. So yeah, fantastic, Bob. I don't actually. I used to put water in my fly box. I don't actually put any water at all in. They just get their moisture purely from the bran and the milk mixture that I use. But I think that's probably partly because mine's wetter than what I suspect Gary Fiddler's are and most other people, I'd say. But again, you're right, Bob. I mean, when I went looking, every aviary I've been to, people do it different. And you know what? If you end up with lots of maggots at the end of the day, who the hell cares how you do it? You know, if it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I was a little concerned that Bob said he had them coming out his ears. I think that was probably some mistake he had made there.
Yes, you're not supposed to eat them yourself, Bob.
Just some input as well that we found. So at one stage we swapped to use pollard, but we found that it went hard too quickly. Like I know that with the brand we do the spray of the water bottle, but we just couldn't work the pollard. It just kept going hard as rock within like a day. So that's some feedback from us.
What were you using apart from pollard? Like, was it just milk powder, or were you using...
just milk powder and pollard. All I use now is I use milk powder and I use bran.
Is it the flaky bran or just a normal bran?
Horse bran.
Yeah, that's the flaky bran.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Use flaky bran if you go in the flaky bran way. If you go in the bran way, use flaky bran because the flakes are a lot larger and there's less congealing of the masses.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, we have a 3-day turnaround, but I've just got myself a setup, so I'm going to build it so I can start doing the way that Gary Fitt does it, where he makes them bigger. So you bring it out in the 3rd day and then make it grow into bigger. Whereas at the moment I don't have the facility, so every 3 days I put them straight in the fridge because I have nowhere to put them.
Have you tried putting them on top of your top of your fly box?
I don't have that big a room. My room is tiny. It's the back of the aviary.
Yeah,
so,
well, I'm in the back of the aviary as well, but I take it out for 2 days and then actually put it on top of the fly box. And the advantage of that, it's actually quite warm there. It's quite warm on top of your fly box.
Yeah, well, what I'm doing now that the aviary's finished, I'm building a bird room and then I'm going to set up in there. Next project.
And another tip that we do is in the bran like drum that we've got all the bran stored in, we put a little sachet of bay leaves to stop moths and things getting in. So a little tip. Anyone else have anything that they wanted to share? Was there anything on YouTube, Sam?
Sorry, I'll just have a look. They're saying, look, much the same, that everybody does something different. And everybody has a different egg laying recipe. Yeah, and also the tip, I suppose, for Bob, get some honey eaters, scarlet honey eaters particularly. They'll hoof any flies that disappear, particularly if you got the fly box in the aviary.
Yeah.
That's what you need, is scarlet honey eaters. Awesome birds to keep. It's amazing. I've seen like a scarlet honey eater with sort of 5 or 6 flies that it's caught, you know, all lined up in its beaks. Like how the hell they manage to hang onto them, I do not know. But they just sort of go bang, 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 pull them out of the air. Amazing to watch.
I think the thing that I've found just in this last season, after breeding maggots for decades, is that, and I think you've just hit the nail on the head, Sam, it's feeding live flies. A lot of our finches love live flies. Obviously, the honey eaters adore them, but as finch keepers, consider letting them pupate, putting them into a fly release station, and that could be the subject of another talk, as Ian Brown has sort of got a video of. And you know, there's more free live food, so live flies. I once tried skim milk powder. During the COVID-19, I couldn't get the skim milk powder from the supermarket. All the packets were off the shelves along with the toilet paper. So I tried light, sort of Weight Watchers type milk powder, and there were no flies. They didn't like it. So full cream milk powder is a big plus. And cow milk powder, which I've just bought during the COVID thing in large quantity, smells more. If you get your full milk powder from the supermarket, there's little or no odor. Just ask my wife.
We had the same thing. I tried the light milk powder thinking I'd do a good thing, and my maggot production was so low, so I threw it out and went back to normal powder.
Actually, Craig Greenaway is just saying he stopped using sugar, which is interesting. I've sort of done the same simply because I was using dark brown sugar simply because I used it to make nectar for honey eaters. But I started making the nectar up in the house, so I ran out of sugar down in the barn, and I had a bit of honey there from just being there forever, and I was putting that in. And you know what? The last month or last couple of months, there's virtually no sugar or honey in there at all, and I haven't noticed any difference. So I'm not convinced that you even need the sugar. Maybe in fact, like Craig's implying, all you need is the brown and the milk, as long as it's wet enough that they can get some moisture. Maybe the flies will feed off that.
Have you taken the lactose out of the milk powder?
The lactose.
Sorry, say again, Brian.
Question.
They'll be taking the lactose out of the milk powder if you don't give them any sugar. They definitely need some form of carbohydrate, or they will not mature. So it might be that only those feeding full cream milk powder or something really can get away with that. If you're on the Kickstarter, it might not work. Well, probably there'd be some sort of sugar in that too, but because you feed out your stuff so wet, it'd be easy enough for the flies to take the lactose out of the media. But if I use the flaky bran and calf substitute milk, and as soon as the sugar disappears in my box, all the flies die, because I feed my stuff out a bit drier than you do.
Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did for Bob. I may have missed it, Bob, in your presentation, but with the box, should you clean it out or leave it dirty, like leave the dead flies, or should it be spotless?
That's a good question. So far, I have not cleaned it out, and the flies are about, I don't know, about 5 millimeters thick on the bottom. I think if I was to buy a fly box or to make a fly box, I'd put a tray in there so that you can just pull the tray out to empty the flies out. So at this stage, and that'd be feedback I'd like from some other people. What do you do with the dead flies?
Give them to your chooks. They love them.
Yeah, but how are you cleaning the flies out?
Well, I've got a tray in the bottom of mine, but I'm not going to clean it out because I'll wait till I've got another fly box, because I think the only way to do it properly is to start another fly box and then empty the other one, because as soon as you slide it out, you've got 5 million flies buzzing around wherever you clean it out.
I vacuum my fly boxes out with the hose attachment through the door.
Fair enough.
Yes. I use the Chinese container, just tipped it upside down and use it to scrape them out.
And it's amazing if you need to clean the fly box, you really need quite strong detergent, because the fly poop is amazingly oily.
I use a paint scraper, and that gets the sides really clean.
Good idea.
That's what I've been using. So in other words, we should clean out our box, not leave it, full of dead flies.
Okay.
Easier said than done, though.
Yeah.
When I say
Maybe every second year.
It's every few years.
Yeah.
A quick question to the more experienced breeders. If you go away for a week or maybe 2 weeks, what do you do about your flies?
Right.
Hope that they keep going.
Hope they keep going. Put heaps of food in there.
I go up to Bob Wright's place and get a new lot of starter flies.
If you just leave a heap of bran in there, and just leave everything set up, they'll last a couple of weeks on that, and by the time you get back, you'll probably have pupae in the bottom of that dish. The other thing, when you go away, you just need to make sure there's enough sugar and enough water. So that's when you definitely have a water container in there with a dental wick or something, and they'll last. Well, I remember one year I turned it off over winter and then went back 3 months later, and there was a few flies persisting in the bottom of the cage, but they just need water and sugar, and they'll survive a couple of
He's just about a water container. What I do, I have one of those tube watering containers which you use on your cabinet, and I drill a hole through the wall. I push that in, and then I have 2 little hooks and a rubber band, and just hook that up, and the birds drink from that. So there's only a small part of that protruding into the fly box, but the birds are easier to change then.
Something interesting that Ian Hamilton just put on YouTube was that he believes that the fly poop on the bottom of the box actually repels the ants. And if Sam said, I mean, I haven't really cleaned ours, but if Sam said that the poop is quite oily, then that would probably make sense that the oil and all that will deter the ants a bit more. So there's a bonus if you don't clean it as much.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah, we had a lot of trouble at one stage with ants constantly getting into our box. So our box now sits up on top of a water moat so that they just fall into the water instead of the box. So that's an idea if anyone's having troubles.
And the power lead, I put the ant gel on so they can't climb the power lead.
Yeah, I had problems with ants attacking my fly box, I don't know, some time ago. And I kind of have Coupex mixed up in spray bottles. So I basically sort of soaked an old tea towel or a couple of tea towels in Coupex and lay them underneath and then put the fly box on top of it. That was the only way I could get rid of the bloody black ants.
Okay, another question. For those who put their fly larvae into the refrigerator, how long will it last in the refrigerator?
About 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, not very long.
What happens is they go jelly. They all stick together to try and get warmth. So when you pull them apart in the afternoon, you've got to try and pull the little bunches apart. But after about 3 or 4 days, it's just basically they go to a jelly mess. Like they sort of just die off.
I'd suggest if you want to put them in the fridge, let them pupate, and then put them in the fridge as pupae with a lid on them and sort of moderately moist, like
Yeah.
you can buy them in the pet shops. They will last 2 or 3 weeks easy in the crisper. And the other thing to remember is that, well, my birds, a lot of the birds prefer the pupae to the maggot.
Oh yeah, I actually meant to say that my birds eat the larvae and the pupae, my finches. So
That's another thing. If anyone might live a bit more away from other breeders and you're struggling to actually buy maggots to get you started, or the flies, we use a company in Melbourne called frogs.org.au, and they actually sell maggots and flies, and you can start your box that way. But one thing that we found was we struggled to get the maggots to turn to flies in the box. We put them outside, and then they would, like the pupae, sorry, we would put it outside the box so it still gets some warmth, but they would turn into flies within a few days outside the box, better than inside the box. So some tips. Anyone else got anything? Any tips?
The only other thing Bob was saying about how he had a couple of the population collapse. I've had the same thing happen with me, and I notice it's when there's not enough food in the dish so that the maggots overwhelm the amount of food, or if the flies are getting a bit old and you haven't topped up with new flies, because the flies will still be alive. They'll probably live a week or two longer than when they're able to lay eggs. So just because you've got flies in there, if they're more than 2 weeks old, they're probably not laying eggs anyway. A bit like 4-year-old orange breasts.
yeah, I believe that flies lay eggs on about a 5 or 6 day cycle. So a fly will lay 300 or 400 eggs, but then it'll rest for another 4 or 5 days before it lays again. And I think flies only last 20, 30 days. So you're going to get 3 or 4 cycles out of your fly.
Very good. There's nothing else on YouTube. Did anyone else have anything else breeding or anything related that they wanted to share tonight, or that might be the end?
I just wanted to say, Matty, with that brand, once it goes to a dark brown, if you wet it up again, is it gone? Like, there's no nourishment in that dark brown brand once it's like that?
Anyone else know? I'm not sure.
It's pretty much done by then. If you add fresh brand to it, usually you'll get the flies to take off, but you can usually smell it when it's got that sort of stinky sort of smell. It's basically full of the equivalent of uric acid, because they obviously they produce waste, and that's what you can smell. So when it goes all dark, it's usually used up. So you're probably better off adding more bran or tipping it out, start again.
All right, thanks, Brian.
John, did you have something to say?
Talking to me, Matty?
Yeah.
When I wanted to start the flies off recently, I had nowhere to get the flies from, so I just put a ice cream container of prawn heads out in the sun for about a week, and then put those inside the box. And they just hatched. They're normal house flies. Obviously, they're not bush flies, but I think that's something you can do every now and then. It doesn't hurt to put a bit of new blood in your fly box. Okay.
Thank you.
The only problem with that, I think the maggots are too big. The majority of the birds don't like those very large maggots. That's what I've found.
They don't seem to stay big for long, though. They seem to go back to a normal bush fly size after a few generations.
Another little thing about feeding maggots, I've found one of the better foods rather than dog food is cat food. And I just take a little bit of it, put it into a a cup with a bit of water and leave it for a day, and it softens up, and then add that to the mixture when the maggots are growing. And in theory, they're supposed to hold that protein. I'm not too sure if it's true or not, but it certainly feeds them.
Just something on from YouTube. Ian Brown said that he sieves the maggots and puts them in fresh pollard, and then they will be able to refrigerate for 3 weeks, and he just has to shake them up each day or every so days. So maybe that's an alternative. We just normally put them straight in the fridge, so maybe that's why ours go off so quickly.
Yeah, it sounds like Ian's talking about, so just like no moisture in the pollard or the bran, I guess. That'd make sense, wouldn't it? It'd probably dry them out a bit rather than them sort of like your dad was saying, where they all stick together, and go gooey.
Yeah, so that could be an alternative as well for if you're going away. I guess you could store them like that for a little while, and then possibly they would pupate.
Yeah, well, if you're going to do that, you probably want the maggots to be as old as you can get them before they turn to pupa.
All right, yeah, I think that's it for tonight. I think next meeting, our July meeting, will be online also. I'm just in processes of finalizing that. Possibly August, we might be back. I'm not sure. We're not going to push it. We'll just keep going how we're going at the moment and see how it goes. Our next magazine should be out soon-ish, Sam, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it should have gone to the printer already, but it'll go to the printer in the next couple of days. So it'll it'll certainly be to you within a fortnight at the latest.
Perfect. And that's it for tonight. Thank you everyone for joining. There's lots of people on the meeting tonight, so it's good for discussion wise to feed off each other, I guess, and a few people on YouTube. So thank you everyone for watching and joining the meeting, and see you next time.
Thanks, Maddie. Well done. See you next time.
See ya.